In 1923, inside the Continental Hotel in Cairo, a wealthy British lord lay in a coma. He was burning with a fever, struggling for each breath. At exactly 1:55 a.m., he took his last breath. At that precise moment, the entire city of Cairo was plunged into darkness, a citywide blackout with no explanation. Thousands of miles away in England, the Lord's pet dog suddenly began to howl. And then, just as suddenly, it collapsed and died. This man's troubles had begun months earlier, when he opened a tomb that had been sealed for 3,000 years. Outside, there was a chilling warning. Death shall come on swift wings to whoever disturbs the peace of the Pharaoh. Over the next 6 years, 22 people connected to that tomb would die. A secretary's father jumped from a 7th-floor window. A radiologist died suddenly, and when scientists performed an autopsy on the 3,000-year-old mummy, they found something that no one could explain. The world called it one thing, the curse of the Pharaoh. But was it real? Or was something far more fascinating happening behind the scenes? Let's dive in. Our story begins a few months before that death. In November 1922, in Egypt's Valley of the Kings, a British archaeologist named Howard Carter was digging. He was on a desperate mission to find a pharaoh whose name had been erased from history, Tutankhamun. Carter wasn't your typical elite archaeologist. He was the son of an animal painter, a sickly child who never went to school. All he had was his father's paintbrush. But his talent was noticed by a wealthy aristocrat, Lord Carnarvon, who sponsored his search. For 15 years, Carnarvon had spent a fortune, equivalent to millions today, and found nothing. He gave Carter one final chance, one last season. On November 4th, 1922, a worker uncovered a step cut into the bedrock. Carter's heart raced. They dug faster. By the next day, a full staircase was revealed. At the bottom, a sealed doorway. The plaster was stamped with the royal seal of the Valley of the Kings, the jackal, and 9 captives. It was a royal tomb. On November 26th, Carter made a small hole in the door. He held up a candle. Lord Carnarvon asked, "Can you see anything?" Carter, speechless, replied, "Yes, wonderful things." What lay inside was the greatest archaeological discovery in human history. Over 5,000 objects, including a solid gold coffin, a death mask made of 10 kilograms of gold, and even a dagger forged from a meteorite. Everything had been preserved for 3,000 years. But as the news spread, strange events began to unfold. Carter had a pet golden canary. One day, his assistant returned to his home to find a cobra inside the cage, with the bird in its mouth. For the local Egyptians, this was a terrifying omen. The cobra was a symbol of Egyptian royalty. They believed it was a warning, revenge for disturbing the pharaoh's peace. Then came the event that made global headlines. Lord Carnarvon was bitten by a mosquito. He accidentally nicked the bite while shaving, and it became infected. In the summer heat, the infection worsened. He fell gravely ill. On April 5th, 1923, at the Continental Hotel, Lord Carnarvon died. The circumstances were eerily dramatic. At the moment of his death, Cairo suffered a citywide blackout that no one could explain. And back in England, his dog, Susie, reportedly died at the same moment. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, publicly suggested an evil elemental was responsible. The media exploded. Headlines screamed, "The curse of the Pharaoh." The myth was born. What happened next seemed to confirm the curse. A series of deaths began. An American financier visited the tomb and died of fever the next day. A British industrialist died after a sudden illness. Carter's key team member, Arthur Mace, died. The radiologist who x-rayed the mummy died. Even the journalist who wrote the first articles about the curse later died of a fever. The list grew to 22 names. But the most shocking detail came in 1925. When scientists performed an autopsy on the mummy, they found a small, round mark on Tutankhamun's left cheek. It was in the exact same location where Lord Carnarvon had received his fatal mosquito bite. The newspapers went wild. It seemed like undeniable proof. But here is where the story flips on its head. And what I'm about to tell you is more shocking than the curse itself. First, The inscription. The famous warning, "Death shall come on swift wings," was a fabrication. It never existed. An amateur archaeologist gave the story to a journalist, and the head of security later admitted he didn't deny it because it made a good story. The most famous curse in history was born from a reporter's imagination and a team's silence. Second, the deaths. In 2002, the British Medical Journal conducted a study. They compared the lifespans of 44 Westerners who were present at the tomb's discovery. The result? There was no significant difference in the average age of death between those who entered the tomb and those who didn't. In fact, one investigator calculated the average age of the cursed was 73 years, above the life expectancy for their era. If anything, the curse was extending their lives. Third, the mysterious coincidences. Power cuts were common in 1920s Cairo. And the dog? The time zones don't match. Carnarvon died at 1:55 a.m. Cairo time, which was around midnight in England, not the reported time of the dog's death. So what about the rest? Lord Carnarvon had been chronically ill for years. He came to Egypt to escape the harsh London winters. In 1923, antibiotics like penicillin didn't exist. A simple infected mosquito bite was genuinely life-threatening. The other deaths? Most were due to pre-existing illnesses or old age. Match on the cheek? That was a claim from a newspaper that was bitter about losing an exclusive reporting deal. Their reporting wasn't journalism. It was a competitive vendetta. But here's the final, undeniable test. If the curse was real, who should have been the first to die? Howard Carter. The man who physically opened the tomb, who handled the mummy, who was there every single day. Howard Carter died in 1939, 16 years after the discovery, of cancer, at the age of 64. When asked about the curse, he would simply smile and say, "I am still alive." The ancient Egyptians believed a person dies only when people stop saying their name. Tutankhamun's successors tried to erase him from history. For 3,000 years the world forgot him. But then, the son of a painter removed the sand and gave that 18-year-old king a new life. Today Tutankhamun is the most famous pharaoh in the world. His name will never be forgotten. And in a way, both he and Howard Carter can say the same thing. Because of that discovery, they are both still alive. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, you'll love our video on the secrets of the Great Pyramids of Egypt. How were they really built? Click here to watch next. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is Rana Asif, signing off.